Hey, we are New Englanders after all. You know we can spot a fake Boston accent a mile away.
Woo-wee. We know Reacher's muscles get me riled up, but how did I react to his butt?
Reacher normally works in a team, but how does he do in his true solo persona?
And is Reacher a James Bond kind of womanizer?
Drugs and Guns, Red and Red Real Reviews hits the road for the third installment of Amazon Prime's Reacher.
Ahoy, ladies! Didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor?
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Been staring at this board for days.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Act. Bears eat beets. My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I am the one who knocks.
Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh my god. The microchip has been compromised.
Dracarys.
Welcome back to the latest and greatest episode of Red and Red Real Reviews. Another revisit episode, another revisit review. This one back to, I guess it must have been season one since this is only season two. Season one, we did season two of Reacher, a little back and forth there. And that one, we definitely had some hot takes on. So season three, this one I feel like is a little bit of a different take of Reacher. It's a lot more of the independent Reacher. It's not necessarily the team play Reacher. His teams kind of separate a little bit. So, of course, the prominent question we have to ask the audience, or should I say tell the audience, should they watch season 3 of Reacher?
Absolutely. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think season 3 of Reacher is the contender for the best season of Reacher so far.
I I still I still don't necessarily think I watched season 1, but I definitely think season 3 was better than season 2.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I even thinking of season 1 did have its moments, so I would kind of put that in second place. And yeah, sorry season 2, not engaging, like kind of lost me at a couple points, but this season was great. This was engaging, it was never boring, it moved right along. I loved it.
Yeah, and it still could, and it could have something to do with like Reacher is obviously this, large muscle-bound individual, and we kind of got to see him in season 3 more in that kind of ass kicker mode. It wasn't like he still kind of had his moments of intellectual thought and uh, kind of covert op thinking things out, but he got to like proverbial flex a little bit and throw down a bit more.
Yeah, and that was just the action of it. It made it more exciting to watch. You were never just sitting there waiting for something to happen. The pacing was great, moved right along. You never felt bored. You never felt like each episode was just not getting anywhere. I thought it moved along great.
And I feel like, as far as pacing's concerned, I don't recall off the top of my head how many episodes season 2 was, or even season 1 for that matter. But I feel like 8 is a good number of episodes for this show because because Reacher is such that every season is independent of the other. You don't need a lot of storytelling downtime.
Right.
So I feel like 8 it keeps the pace going a little bit more.
Yeah, and each episode was an hour, so that was enough. That was plenty sufficient. I liked all the change in setting. Each season we have a setting change. So this kind of took place in Maine. We did have a couple shout outs to Connecticut in there. We had mentions of New London, New Haven, Hartford at one point. I was like, yes, they're really there. They're driving.
I did feel like when he said how long it was going to take him to get, I forgot how long he said it was, but when he said how long it was going to take him to get to New London, I was like, I don't know. In a box truck, you're not driving like you would in a sports car.
Yeah, it's a solid. I've driven to Maine before. It's a solid, I would say, 5 hours.
Minimum. If you're
Right.
if you're if you're rolling and that's in a normal car, not a truck.
Right, especially when you're talking about Portland, Maine, which is, I think, kind of just inside Maine.
Mhm.
So drive, and also it depends on what part of Connecticut you're driving from too. But yeah, solid 5 hour car trip.
Yeah, that's true. My starting point historically in my life was a little further south than yours.
Yeah, mine was pretty central, so yeah.
The other thing I want to add is I know how much of a fan you are of Alan Richardson's muscles, his Ripley build, if you will. And not only did you get that, you got a love scene with him and Duffy. I gotta ask, do you ship them? But there was also the big gratuitous butt shot. So, did they give you a little bit of the giggle treatment during that moment?
It was funny because my husband has a habit of, if there's some sort of love scene or something, and if it's like an attractive guy, he'll usually be like, "Babe, don't look," you know? So that's what he said when Reacher's butt was on the screen. So that was pretty funny. And I just want to put this out there. No, absolutely not. I do not ship Duffy and Reacher. I am Roscoe, which is from the first season you didn't watch. I am Roscoe and Reacher forever. For
Forever.
EVA. Forever.
But does Duffy at least take second place over Dixon?
Is that the chick from the second season?
Yeah.
Eh, maybe if she didn't have such a horrible accent, but we'll talk about that
Oh,
later.
yes, we will very much get into that in a bit. So, into the kind of nitty-gritty of the season. The crux of this season very much was this conjoined operation by different parties with a similar but kind of different goal. Uh, they both have a general ambition to get into this Beck organization, but Reacher wants to do it from the standpoint of his quest for revenge against Xavier Quinn, this very, very evil man, and Duffy has it from the sense of rescuing her uh, inside operative Teresa. So I, I feel like because of that, there was almost a dark premonition that something was going to go awry because you can't have two ships flying in the night without them
Hmm.
kind of colliding with each other, or at least have the risk of that. So, what were some kind of moments throughout where you're like, oh no, facepalm, this is where it all goes to shit?
I think, well, so we started off in the first episode where this situation happens where Reacher saves this kid, and the kid takes him back to his house and was like, "My dad will give you something for saving me." And Reacher ends up working for Beck, and that was all fine and good. But then I think it was the second or third episode where they showed how that came to be. They showed that it was a
Yeah.
setup for Reacher to be inside that world for Duffy and Billy, and to investigate about what Beck was doing with his business. And that was the moment when we saw that that was all orchestrated for Reacher to get inside. I was kind of like, oh God, something, this is like the main plot of the season, right? So
Hmm.
something is going to go badly, and, someone's going to find out that he's a plant somehow. It's not going to be just all sunshine and rainbows and puppies.
And you're right, it did take like a solid episode and a half because we legit thought that Reacher was just up Shit's Creek without a paddle with killing a cop and that sort of thing. It wasn't necessarily like I guess it was Billy that got that like fake getting shot, but you couldn't really see the face. I thought it was a black man that got shot, so I didn't realize that that was even remotely part of the setup. So it was a good episode and a half, 2 episodes before it was even revealed that this was all like under the hood.
Right. And you thought it was all happenstance, like, oh, Reacher's just in the right place at the right time and happened to save this kid of his own, quick reacting and goodwill. And it wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, and I thought at one point later on when their goals started to cross wires a little bit and Duffy started to question whether or not Reacher's quest for vengeance was going to put at risk Teresa's life. That was when I caught, and I think that at this point, this is after they kind of had their little love scene and whatnot. So, um, I really thought at that point that like, oh, this is now the wires really are too crossed, and she's just gonna go off on her own. Plus, you have the scene with the ATF, which kind of didn't really go anywhere, by the end of it. But I also kind of thought that like that whole interaction with them was like, oh, Quinn's gonna get away, and this is gonna wind up being the Reacher that continues into another season instead of being wrapped up with a bow at the end.
Right. And to your point, the situation that they showed, which was the reason he wanted to go after Quinn, his protege, Dominique, I forget what her last name was. Cole, yes, Dominique Cole. So they kind of did a flashback and showed that whole thing so that the reason for why he's so dead set going after Quinn. And you're kind of wondering, well, he definitely has the right to want this revenge for Quinn, but is that going to interfere with Duffy keeping Teresa safe or finding Teresa or finding out about where she is or where they have her?
Which I gotta say, as far as Cole's concerned, I will give credit where it's due to Amazon and the showrunners for this. Because normally especially considering there's only 8 episodes, when a show does like a cutaway to give you a little bit of a backstory, it feels like it distracts from the show and you're kind of not really engaged for an episode because like, oh, this is just backstory filler. I don't really care. But that one, it felt like they got to all the details. They showed you what they needed to do, and then they were back on with the mission.
Right. And it was a storytelling technique because they did have Reacher literally sitting at a table and was telling them about what happened and they're responding in real time. It wasn't like the flashback took up the whole episode, to your point.
Yeah. And you're like looking at the clock finally, or you like keep pausing to see how much time you have left in the episode.
Yeah. You're like, why are they doing a whole episode for this flashback? Was that really necessary?
Yeah. So I thought that was well done. But other than like that kind of, I don't think you would call this necessarily a climax of the show. Other than that little part, like it didn't really feel like once they were past that, it didn't really feel like the plan went awry to close out the season.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say.
Another semi-related note to this topic is the art of redemption. So Beck is thought to be this cold, money-hungry kingpin, and it turns out that he's kind of one of those the enemy of my enemy is my friend situations, where once Reacher's kind of exposed to Beck, it doesn't really throw off the mission like you would expect because he kind of realizes that Quinn is not this Julian McCabe or whatever he claimed to be, and he realizes that his duty to his son Richard is more of his ultimate goal than whatever this gun deals, drug deals situation is. So there's just kind of a redemption arc of Beck where he goes from shitty father, gun runner, kingpin to a moment of salvation at the end as far as saving Richard and indirectly setting him up to have a life of his own.
It's funny because when the show starts, we don't know what Beck does for business. He has this bizarre rug business, but they're convinced that he's selling drugs or something. They later find out it's guns or weapons. And so, yeah, you have this impression from the get-go that he's just this kind of rich creep. He's not a good guy. His son is kind of neglected. His wife has died years ago. And yeah, it was quite a redemption arc because by the end you really feel bad and you start to like Beck. And it's funny, first of all, to see that's Anthony Michael Hall. I don't know if you know him, the actor
I
who
know
plays
the
Beck.
name, but I know the name, but you'd have to, because I confuse
Yes.
him. I confuse him with the Dexter guy because the names are similar.
Michael
Michael C.
Michael Hall?
Hall or
Michael
Michael
C.
C.
Hall.
Hall or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they're I think totally different ages from different generations, but Anthony Michael Hall in recent years he's taken dramatic roles where he plays kind of a like a I would say a stone cold guy who's just kind of stoic, and he played in Law and Order SVU in the past couple of years. He was some sort of police chief or something like that. And what he's known for, though, you know, it's funny that he's playing these stoic roles because what he's known for is the nerd guy from 16 Candles. Did you realize that? Do you know? Have you ever
I've
seen
never
16
watched
Candles?
16 Candles. I know what it is, but I've never watched it.
So I don't know if I showed you a screenshot of what Anthony Michael Hall used to look like, you would crap your pants because you'd be like, that's the same guy.
Is it? But isn't that like a teeny movie? Like how long ago was that?
It's in the 80s. So yeah,
Oh, okay. It is old.
that was
Okay.
probably one of his first roles, and I think he was in another one of those 80s movies. But yeah, super skinny kid. He just was a geek, like wasn't good looking, and now he's this guy who plays like a hard ass, which is amazing.
Well, I mean, they say that's the thing about men aging. We tend to get more distinguished.
Yeah, that's him for sure, which is surprising.
So, the moment of this theme of healing kind of also continues in terms of Reacher's quest for revenge. Is fueled by, of course, what Quinn did to his former protege, and the moment of, I guess, comeuppance, for lack of a better word,
Mm,
is Neely employing this very Reacher-esque tactic of taking one of Beck's uh, a grenade from Beck's office that's just kind of
yeah,
like a piece of memorabilia or
right.
antique, that sort of thing, and she puts this ploy out that it's a live grenade. She pulls the pin out and she says to this Russian mob at the end, it's like, oh, you don't want to give up Quinn, but you want your money. How about you don't get either, and I just blow everyone to Kingdom Come. And I felt like that was a fitting. It kind of set up a very fitting close to this whole revenge arc for Reacher, because there's like a little bit of a moment of regret, because when Reacher thought he killed Quinn the first time, he put a bullet right in his head. He fell off a cliff. This guy's not coming back, and sure enough, he does. So what does he do? He's got a 12 gauge shotgun and he just blows his head away at close range. I was like, well, he's definitely not coming back now. And Reacher's little revenge arc is tied for sure.
Yeah, I love that little team moment at the end with Neely's kind of quick thinking, or maybe she thought to do that from the get-go, but I thought that was a cool little moment. And then you had Villy kind of looking after Richie, and Villy kind of was pitching in and as part of the team. It was all kind of one big happy team, Villy, Duffy, Reacher, Neely.
To the point where they almost all had like a different role at the party.
Exactly.
Like Reacher's just running like a bull in a china shop, and of course he runs into Paulie, which kind of winds up being its own thing.
Yeah.
And Villy's saving Richard, and Neely's kind of surveying the scene with the gun dealers at the party, and of course Duffy's going after Teresa. So it felt like it was a little bit of a connect the dots situation with everyone's role in the operation.
It was almost like they got together, were like, okay, Duffy, you go after Teresa. Billy, you look after Richie. And break. Like,
Yeah. Team. Go team. Collaborate.
synergy.
Yeah. Ice is back with a brand new invention. Anyway. I, I almost feel like that also could be like a little bit of have a little bit of a meta trace there because it was set up as with so many different ambitions in the ultimate goal. You almost kind of think like maybe they could not coexist to get this thing done. So that maybe it's a situation where they almost had to break off and each have a different goal in order to, get to the eventual point that they all wanted to be at.
It almost seemed like it was a cohesive plan, which is crazy. I wonder if it was just quick thinking on Neely's part to do that and to have the bag of money or whatever it was to say, hey, we'll take him if we give you this money.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it could have been a situation where Neely was like, "All right, this plan kind of went to hell in a handbasket. So, what's my backup? What's my backup situation looking like?"
Like she saw an opportunity and just took it.
Yeah. As we normally do, we talk some serious stuff and then we talk some fun stuff. Reacher has this very dry sense of humor, which is usually appealing to me, and it keeps the show light. So I mean, as appealing as the show would be, as if it was just this muscle-bound freak tearing terrorists and bad guys and drug runners and cartels apart, it kind of adds a little bit of a lighter note to sneak in these one-liners. So, what were some of our favorite kind of LOL laugh out loud moments?
I feel like, of course, there are always good lines here and there, and obviously, Reacher would be nothing. Like you said, we wouldn't care to watch if it was just a good-looking dude that had no brains. So yeah, he's got some sharp wit. So he's always saying lines. I didn't write much down. I don't know if there was anything I laughed out loud at. The one part I think my husband and I laughed out loud at was the grandma scene. Like, she was the absolute best. She was hilarious.
Because she's like, I know when people have chemistry and that sort of thing. And at this point, I don't remember if they had slept together already at that point.
No, they hadn't. They
had. Okay, so they were still kind of in that will they won't they phase. So they're kind of in denial of what's going on. And Reacher just kind of makes that little cut, like, oh, she only wants me for my body.
Yeah, and then when Duffy shows up at the grandma's house and she brings Reacher, and I think the grandma says, oh, so who's this tall drink of water? Or, you know, she says something about that. And she's just kind of looking at him with hearts in her eyes. And she was so funny and so honest. And then I think after that scene, my husband was like, I hope they have the grandma come back. Like, he was really, really hoping for it. And then they did. But at the end, that was when they delivered. It was like a tearful coming home because Duffy was delivering Teresa back to her grandma. So it wasn't as funny as we had hoped.
Yeah, which I was a little concerned because the whole Teresa thing, even though it was a little off screen and we never really saw it, her kind of recovery from being an addict and then seeing Quinn kind of like pump her up with heroin at one point. I'm thinking like, oh no, this girl, I don't want to say little girl, but this like young girl that, is trying to turn her life around, is getting pumped up with drugs. And even though that was kind of would have been a tangent off a show as it is, you're kind of thinking in the back of your mind, like, oh no, she's going to like go right back to her ways of being an addict and that be, this like right off a rocker again.
You're thinking of all the ways it could go wrong, which I'm very much the same way.
Yeah. The other one preceding that whole little like cutting the sexual tension with a knife with the grandmother, there was a scene where Duffy kind of is starting to see Reacher in a little different light, and they're in the alleyway. She jumps up and she gives him this big kiss, and she like pushes him back right away. It's like, whoa, no, that is not happening twice. And Reacher's sitting there like awestruck, like, I didn't know it was going to happen once.
Yeah, that was a total Reacher line, the way he said that. That's
Yeah.
the kind of stuff like he pretends to be blindsided by these things. And it's the same thing with her speech at the end where she's like, "Listen, can't be held down. Like I'm going to do what I like to do and I'm not going to answer to anybody and I do my own thing." And he's just kind of stunned because he was going to give her the same speech.
Yeah. And then when she leaves and then Neely comes back out, it's like, "Oh, okay, did you let her down easy?" I'm like, "I didn't have the chance to."
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Which
great.
I kind of thought he was also going to follow that up by saying, "She let me down easy."
Yeah, like he had finally kind of met his match. Although I still don't think they're good together. But I think that's the thing is like they're the same personality. You always hear how people with the same personality or don't
They
make
don't work.
a good couple. You got to
Yeah.
balance things out. You have to be different.
Yeah, which sometimes I think that's true, sometimes not, because people that are too different, you don't have anything in common. You
Right.
don't I under like they always say like, "Oh, you have to fight with your spouse." I'm like, "Why? I don't want to fight with anybody."
No, you shouldn't fight, but you should have something in common, whether it's morals. Like it doesn't have to mean interests.
Yeah, too much difference in the ingredients is also not good.
Yeah, and in their case, though, I think they are too much alike, and I kind of similar to last season with Dixon. I just kind of feel like it was just like forced. It's like, okay, Reacher's gotta sleep with some chick every season.
hmm It's almost like the James Bond effect. Like
I
there's
was
got to be there's got to be the female counterpart, and it's got to
That's
be a different
exactly what
female.
I said. Exactly what I said to my husband. I said it's just like James Bond. He's got to sleep with some chick every season.
Yeah, there cannot be shipping, regardless of
No,
who you want him shipped with. There cannot be shipping.
guess not.
And of course the other thing I got a kick out of is Richard, this little dweeby shrimpy kid, and he realizes what's going on with Reacher before everyone else, and there was
Mm.
kind of this understanding that he was going to keep the secret tight. And Reacher goes as far as giving him like fighting instructions, in case he has to defend himself, because he kind of knows this climax is coming. And he's kind of busted his balls a little bit when they're training, and and Reacher goes like, "Well, he's trying to like sing up his own confidence, I guess." So he's like, "Well, what if I'm not the weaker fighter?" And Reacher just goes like, "You will be." Like there's like it's zero like saying without saying, I have zero confidence in you kicking anyone's ass.
Yeah, and I thought that was that scene, and then when Reacher kind of kicked all those kids' asses when they were downtown. I love that, and I felt like Richie and Reacher had great chemistry just as scene partners. And it's funny because the actor who plays Richie, his name is Johnny Birchtold, and he's like he came from the internet. This kid, I don't know if he was an actor before, but I used to see his videos on Twitter before Twitter was X. This was at like maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago. And he used to have, I think he was like a horror fan, and he used to have these videos where he would act and it would be like POV, you're the high school football player in a horror movie or something like that. And he'd act out these scenes and they were so funny. And I was like, this is such a cute kid. Like he's so creative and he's a great actor the way he comes up with this stuff. And then I saw him in another Amazon show a few years ago. And then when he popped up as Richie, I was like, damn, I was like, Amazon's got this kid on lock. Like he's actually getting going and having a pretty decent career, having to work alongside Alan Ritchson.
So almost like the intellectual version of the Paul brothers, Logan and Jake Paul.
Yeah, he's definitely a skinny little kid, and he's smarter than he is tough in real life too, I think. But But yeah, it seems like he's having a decent career, and that's great that he, got his career going with this show.
Gives hope for all the podcasters of the internet that we can be famous too one day.
Right. It's like, see, look at where he started. He was doing little like TikTok videos, and that now he's on an Amazon Prime show.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have guessed he was, just an internet sensation. To me, he seemed like a serious actor. Like he'd been brought up through traditional means and,
Yeah.
had a pretty serious background and traditional training. I wouldn't have guessed he was just an internet nobody one day.
He seems legit, but started from the bottom. Now he's here in Reacher.
I thought you were gonna bust out the Drake song there.
No, not that's like one of the two Drake songs that I know, so it ain't gonna happen.
Well, that's the reason why it should happen. You gotta insert the musical stylings when you can. Come on.
Oh, geez. No one wants me to do that, trust me.
Everyone wants you to do that. All right, an oldie but goodie segment of ours. Tell them why you mad. And the first one, I've gotta say, this is like hit a vibe on me almost immediately when this season started. We are both from New England. You're still up there. We know a Boston accent. Why was Susan Duffy's so terrible? It sounded like nails on a chalkboard to me. Every time I heard her speak, I was hearing, "Talk the card, Harvard yard."
It was just, you know what? I felt that way instantly as well, and I never thought I would agree with you on pretty much every single point that we have to talk about in this section, but here we are. And at first I was kind of questioning. I thought, okay, maybe this agent is from Maine, because I don't know if you know, but Maine, people from Maine, like native Maine, have a really odd accent. It's almost an accent of its own. It's not quite like a Rhode Island accent, but it's a weird accent. So I was thinking, okay, well maybe she's from Maine. But then when they threw in this whole like she's from Boston thing, I was just kind of like, wait, that's not even close to a Boston accent. It was so strong with certain words. And then the words that it should have been strong on, she sounded completely normal. So
Yeah.
it was very, not to shit on this actress, but it was a very inconsistent accent. I did not think it was good at all.
And I mean, I feel like I probably should have tried to find another work to see what she sounds like, but I mean, to see if I'm rooted in ignorance or not. But I feel like it was so over the top profound that there's no way it was legitimate.
That can't be a real accent. There ain't no way that can be a real accent.
The only way it's real is if she was really from Boston, New England, what have you, and she was almost trying to make a character of herself. That's the only way I could possibly see, like if she was emphasizing it for on-screen purposes, which I almost find worse. I almost find worse as just someone who's, from England and tries to fake the Southern drawl. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I was going to say. I was like, usually when Australians or the English do an American accent, they're usually better than we are.
Yeah.
So I can't see that being a thing where she's an actress from England or from Australia. That just doesn't really seem plausible. I think she is American, but it's like a caricature of what people think a Boston accent sounds like, but we can spot a fake from a mile away.
Yeah. It's kind of to your point on the Brits being very good at doing different accents. There's several out there, but the first one that popped in my head was like Emily Blunt. She's got a very thick British accent when she's being interviewed, but she's almost never British in roles, and you would never know.
There are so many actors nowadays that you would have no idea that they're from a different country because they sound exactly like an American every show and movie they do.
Yeah, or even Colin Farrell is another one.
Right.
He's got that very distinct Irish accent, almost to the point of it's an Irish accent that you almost never hear anyway.
Yeah.
And it's basically completely gone in his roles. To the point like the Penguin that we reviewed not that long ago, it was like just straight, Brooklyn boy.
It's amazing. It's amazing what these actors do with dialogues and accents. And she just, it was terrible the whole time.
Yeah. If you ain't from Boston, don't do it. And I will say, as much as I enjoyed the adrenaline rush of the Reacher and Paulie fight, just seeing these behemoths go at each other, heavyweight brawl style, there were certain things about it that really bothered me. So at the first time you think Paulie's got the one up on Reacher, and he wraps the heavy chain around his neck and he starts yanking him up the ceiling. He's not pulling him up quick, like he's pulling him up very, very slow.
Yeah.
So Reacher's got this thick, heavy steel chain around his neck, and he's got his hands underneath it. But anyone that's held a thick steel chain, if you're pulling on it with any resistance, it will hurt your hands. So going up that slow, you will strangle. So there is no way he's going up that slow for that long a time and have enough time to do his little gymnastics act and flip his feet up to the ceiling. So that was very, very unrealistic. And then to me, the thing with the old machine gun in the office was also a little unrealistic, was the fact that it shouldn't be loaded. Like, why is that loaded?
So I think, to be fair, I kind of question that. I'm like, why is that huge machine gun there? And I guess my husband said that in an earlier scene when people were like coming through the gate and Paulie was like questioning them as to whether they could come through, I think the machine gun had been hanging there previously, and they kind of had it pointed at whoever was coming through the gate just to intimidate them.
Well, that doesn't mean it has to be loaded. They could be blanks. That doesn't mean that they'd be live rounds. It's just bits in the face of every gun safety practice ever. You do not leave a loaded firearm.
I know, yeah, kind of in the what do we call it, guard station, or what do you call that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess pretty irresponsible. It's not just any gun, it's a crazy machine gun.
Yeah. The one that's, and knowing Beck's fascination with all these antique guns, it's something that was made in a time where the only purpose of a weapon like that was just massive amounts of destruction. So just the sheer irresponsibility to leave it hanging there with that many live rounds is just like, I don't care if he's a gun runner underneath the cover of a rug dealer. This does not work.
Yeah, it seems slightly dangerous, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's slightly dangerous.
Careless and slightly dangerous.
Yeah. And the third one, it would be very remiss of us not to mention that, since we are Red and Red Real Reviews. As redheads, call me crazy, Teresa did not seem like a legit ginger.
I think you're right, and that thought occurred to me too. It's like I said before, we as real redheads can spot a fake a mile away, the same way we can spot a person who doesn't have a real Boston accent.
Yeah. She seemed like what's her name? Julia Roberts' daughter. She kind of had like those type of like facial features. It seemed like she was just like a blonde that they kind of put red highlights in.
You mean Emma Roberts? She's Julia Roberts' niece.
Oh, she's her niece. She's not her daughter. Okay,
she's her niece. Yeah. Julia Roberts' brother Eric is Emma Roberts' dad.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it does. Julia Roberts, by the way, I don't think she's a real redhead. She's a blonde.
So the Erin Brockovich is Julia Roberts, not the
yes,
not Pretty Woman.
And that's kind of what I thought. Is it's possible the woman who played Teresa, she was sort of pale, I noticed. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you could be pale, you could have dark hair, you could be pale and have be very fair, like blonde. So yeah, my guess is she's a natural blonde. I didn't really think that her shade of red looked
No.
natural.
And like you can't be like, okay, you're pale so you can pull off being a redhead. It's like, because there, if you're a pale ginger, there's almost kind of like you get the rosacea, you have freckles. Her face was just pale.
Yeah, not everyone can be a redhead, but I did, even though they were disgusting, I did kind of sort of, I said to my husband, yeah, redheads are special. When the Quinn was talking to those guys, like, basically selling her, and was like, oh, I have one you'll like. You give it, check out the merchandise, and this one's exotic. And, they're all like, oh, well, her hair's like fire and she's so special and exotic. I was like, it's disgusting that they're pimping her out, but I'm appreciating the positive redhead feedback about being special, being like fire, being like a unicorn, basically. So
To that point, I found it interesting when Nasir went up before Duffy blew his nuts off. And he goes to approach Teresa, and he goes like, "Oh, you're even more beautiful than you're in the photos." And she's sitting there like drugged out, rocking back and forth. I'm thinking, what? Like,
yeah,
this can't be like, unless you just want a warm piece of meat. Like that can't be what you thought you were gonna get when Quinn said he was gonna give you something you liked.
well, unfortunately, there are people out there that do find stuff like that appealing, and it's gross and it's disgusting, but it is a thing.
Yeah. All right. What also is a thing is the continuation of Reacher, and obviously this is not necessarily a show that we look forward to the next season for things being resolved, because they're all individual storylines, they're all new missions. But in spite of that independence, Reacher does kind of ride off into the sunset. So if Amazon were to pull an Outer Range again, at least there was kind of a fitting ending. But I mean, what do you think? I mean, is it something? Do we know that this was renewed again?
I'm pretty
Is it
sure
not yet?
I'm pretty sure we know it's been renewed. I just don't know what their plans are as far as how many seasons. I'm pretty sure it's been renewed. But I'm kind of secretly still hoping that Roscoe from the first season returns. And I know obviously that Reacher is based off of these Jack Reacher books, and sometimes at the beginning of the season or the episode it'll say like based on this certain book, and it'll say the title. And I guess from what I've heard, the show doesn't follow the books in order, so there are some discrepancies between the books and the show, so they might skip around, they might do things that are not in the books. So I'm still holding out hope that we'll see Roscoe return again. Obviously, I know we're going to see Neely again. And I understand that each season is like a different mystery. Each season is a different chick that Reacher's going to sleep with. Each season is a different setting that he goes along to. I'm assuming now he's sort of a nomad. So for me, obviously, he's on to the next town. Maybe he's a motorcyclist now that he's got that cool jacket and the motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, he even said, somebody says like, it's like, oh, maybe I'll just go on the road. Maybe it was Richard. He says, I'll go on the road and I'll do my own thing like you do. And he's like, yeah, but I'm actually good at it.
Yeah, he's very good at, isn't his rule that he doesn't even like take his toothbrush with him or something? I think he has a rule about that.
I think it's the other way around. I think that's the only thing he carries with him,
It's the
because there
only
was
thing
that
he carries.
Yeah, there was that one scene early on where he's like jumping out of the hotel room or something, and he specifically turns around and he grabs the toothbrush off the sink on the way out.
Yeah, that's what it was. But I think when Beck mentioned something about like going to town and we're going to buy you some clothes, Reacher's like stupefied because he always buys his clothes from like a thrift store.
Yeah.
So yeah, he buys nothing new except every once in a while he's got to replace that toothbrush, I'm sure.
I would hope so, because that would be pretty gross.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, I felt like everything in this season was tied up nicely. Quinn is dead. It's pretty much no doubt that he's coming back. Then he got his head blown off with a shotgun. I'm sure Neely will be back, but the internal progress of Neely is that she's kind of becoming more of Reacher. You know, she's kind of becoming an assassin, this kind of like intellectual assassin in her own right. Teresa's saved. She returns home. Richard's off to a fresh start, which he told Reacher he wanted. Just said he wanted to take one of the cars and go and never come back. So it didn't necessarily, unless you've got something I'm missing, didn't necessarily feel like there's anything in this season that we're left unfulfilled by.
No, I don't think so at all. And I think we might see these people, I don't know what happens in the books, we might see these people return at some point. Like we saw I can't remember his name, the guy from season 1 return in season 2 for a little bit. It might be something like that where, you know, Richie pops in, or I don't know, someone else pops in. I kind of doubt, though, that he's going to see Duffy again. Kind of doubt he's going to see all of these people again. So, but that's kind of the pacing and the MO with each show.
Yeah, Duffy felt like a one-off to me.
Oh, yeah. All these chicks are one-offs. He uses them and loses them.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Well, don't treat us like a one-off. If you enjoy listening to our show, please give us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, where if you're on the go, you can listen to us on those platforms, as well as iHeartRadio as well. And if you just enjoy our talk of the ginger greatness, if you just like seeing the ginger greatness, watch us on YouTube and Rumble. Questions and comments, email us real reviews, that is the letter N, and that is real spelled with 2 E's, at gmail.com, and follow along with our adventures on social media. She is Binge the Ginge, that is dots between the words, on Instagram, and all one word on TikTok. And I am Nutmeg 2 Palmetto, that is the number 2 on both platforms. Next up, episode 21, season 2 is Drinking Age, the highly anticipated release of White Lotus, just like Severance. There seems to be a little bit of a buzz with this one. And we'll give you the realest scoop that you'll get on the internet. Until the next real review, Red and Red are signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
No. Try not. Do. Or do not.
Because I don't want those scrubs.
Let the dogs out, you know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love. None but love.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Blow up! Peace! Smile, you son of a...
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
Hey, it's not funny anymore.
TLC references. Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.